Hey everyone, this is Tap to Pay, a Future of Faith, doing the newsletter recap with Tap and friends. At Future of Faith, we curate a twice monthly newsletter spotlighting the people, practices, and places shaping what's next for faith. Each issue invites you listening to the field through real stories on the ground, listening to each other through thoughtful conversations, and listening to the research that helps us understand where faith is headed. We celebrate a featured artist of the year and share dream jobs and opportunities you won't want to miss. Subscribe today at futureoffaith.org and join a growing community committed to listening well and building the future of faith together.
Hi.
Hello. Hey everyone, welcome back to Newsletter Recap with Tap and friends. Here I am with my friend Charlotte Long again. You guys remember her from the last Newsletter Recap a couple of videos ago. Charlotte is our associate researcher here at Future of Faith, and we are so excited that she's here to join us as she has been featured in this recent newsletter with her blog post about monolingual listening. I'm very excited to talk about this one because it's about the Super Bowl halftime show, which was amazing by the iconic Bad Bunny. So let's get into this blog post. So Charlotte, just let us know about what compelled you to write it, what inspired you to write this piece, and just the things that you learned from the Super Bowl halftime show.
Totally. So if you've read the piece or not read the piece, I think the most relevant piece of information is that I am a non-Spanish speaking person who's worked in a lot of Spanish speaking environments. I was a housing specialist for faith-based communities who were working to house migrants. And I've worked as sort of like a housing social worker in migrant spaces. A lot of languages being spoken, honestly, in those spaces, not just Spanish, but I'm from Chicago, which is like a vibrant Latin Spanish speaking community. And a lot of people migrate to Chicago to try and figure out if they can be in spaces where they can hear their own language heard. So I'm really used to being the person in the room who both understands everything that's going on if it's happening in English and has to translate to another language, or being in a room where everybody is speaking a different language except for me, and they understand some English and I don't have like the capacity that they all have to be trilingual or more often. So I think a lot about the power dynamics of language and what that means. So as someone who only speaks a little bit of Spanish, but is like really invested, I was really captivated by the first ever all Spanish Super Bowl. I was just like, what is this going to be like for people who aren't used to being in multilingual spaces? What am I going to be feeling? What am I missing out on by not understanding every detail? And like, I love Bad Bunny and listen to Bad Bunny, but I don't pretend to like understand every word he says. And I like definitely look at lyrics, and also Puerto Rican accents like drop a lot of consonants. So even if you speak Spanish, you're like, what's going on? And it's like very storytelling. A lot of his songs are like a lot of stories and have a lot of like stances. So you want to know what's being said. And there were just so many hot takes about the Super Bowl. And I didn't see a lot about language and listening and what that was like. So I was like, I got to write about this.
That is so awesome. It was really cool to see. I just want to point out this one quote that you had from the blog post that said, "For me, watching Bad Bunny's halftime show was an exercise in the art of a particular kind of listening that is done every day by people all over the world. The kind of listening that has no direct translation and thus forces the listener to let go and receive without clarity." This was really, really cool to me because the fact that this was the first all Spanish speaking Super Bowl, it didn't have subtitles at all.
No.
And so people had to be engaged.
They had their feelings
and had no idea what was being spoken, but could feel the energy through the screen and just know that there was such storytelling that was happening, whether through the dancing or the music or the images that they were trying to create. I had a friend who was one of the standing sugarcane and how they were and
how can you have kept that from me?
It was so crazy when she finally revealed it to us. I was like, how did you get this? But she was saying how it was so important for him to show the migrant workers that were working in the sugarcane fields and just the technicalities that it took to be able to have that scene demonstrated instead of like having all of these fields that they have to build. They were like, well, let's just put people. And it was people from all different races and ethnicities and age groups. And it was just so beautiful just within that, and the storytelling through the casting for that. And so it was really, really cool to just see all of the, I don't know, all of the love that was being poured out and not knowing a single word that was being said. That type of art eliciting is just really, really hard to do, especially in the political climate and just the time that we're living right now in the world. And it was really funny to know that the only person speaking Spanish was Lady Gaga, or speaking English was Lady Gaga.
You can tell though, she was just like thrilled to be there. She's like, oh my God, like she is a Bad Bunny fan, which is so incredible, because she's like,
and he's a fan of her. He loves her.
I know. And then everyone's a fan of Ricky. Oh my God.
Yeah, the intersection of cultures was amazing. So
it was. And I think the thing you said about like, there's so much here. One, the fact that you know somebody who is a sugarcane puppet. Yes, that's puppetry to me. I have a performance background. I can say what puppetry is. But also the fact that not only you're making me realize, do people who don't speak Spanish have to utilize their listening skills for like understanding the story that we're watching, but also the person putting it together, not only Bad Bunny, but like his creative team is thinking so much about storytelling, so much more than like any halftime show we've ever seen, because they are trying to translate across language and difference. And that also is a type of listening. It's not just talkie. It's like, okay, what pictures like create the most amount of emotion, and how can we convey something that is beyond identity, you know, and that is a type of listening as well. Storytelling is listening. Wild, you know.
Honestly, that is really, really cool and so exciting, which makes me think about the next thing that we had in our newsletter. Listen to the Field. It was about the Colossians Forum, which was mainly about turning conflict into conversation. And it's interesting how we have something like, you know, art that's trying to bring people together and have everyone, just try to listen to each other on the aspect of love. But when there's conflict and disagreement, how do people still try to listen wholeheartedly without the spirit of offense, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. And I've also Colossians Forum has been thinking about. And to combat this, they have these small group resources and workshops and trainings to help people build healthier conflict cultures, because we know that church hurt is a real thing. And just being able to have those difficult conversations with each other is really important. So I wanted to know what your stance was, or what you thought would be, I don't know, good practices when it comes to dealing with conflict and building that type of safe space like Colossians Forum is trying to do.
Yeah, I really admire this kind of work also because like conflict manuals and books have been, the purchase of them and interest in them has been on the rise for like the last decade or more. I'm sure Josh could correct me on that. It's probably more, but there's been an interest in it, and people are hungry to know how to do that. And religious spaces are in a particular intersection, a particular space to be able to provide the practical parts of that. So this transition from book learning about conflict spaces to actually trying to practice it in these small groups is not only essential, but like we should have been doing it forever. And I'm sure some communities have been and are like, hello. You can't learn it just from reading. You have to be in practice with people, A, that you trust, B, that you can, let's say, repair harm with, right? That's not something we can do with everybody, not even the people we're close with. And I've had so many, therapists and family systems people say to me, it's not about the conflict. It's about being able to repair afterwards. We think of conflict as this thing where it's like, try to avoid it. Well, then you're not going to be a human in the world. But if you can repair after the conflict, if you can talk to somebody about what's happening between the two of you, find common ground for what you care about, and also say, here's what I felt in that moment. Here's where the tension was for me. Do you feel the same way. Maybe they do, but maybe they also don't. Maybe they have a completely other narrative of what's going on. I mean, even in tiffs with family members, that stuff comes up. Two people have a completely different narrative of what that argument was even about. So yeah, I think the practice is essential, constant practice. And too often religious spaces have the means and the resources to offer that kind of practice and just aren't jumping on it. So I'm really excited for this to be, a bridge to religious communities.
Yeah, it's the same thing that the Communion Project, even in the newsletter, is trying to do as well. With, but specifically within Catholics, where they're trying to engage with each other when it comes to developing conflict and figuring out where that divide is and trying to bring everyone together. I think the spirit of offense is really real when it comes to the church, and just knowing that the spirit of offense really is rooted in pride and not knowing about perspective and not trying to see another person's perspective, mainly because of someone's lived experience or the biases that they have, but knowing that there is a safe space for people to be able to just, handle their grievances and to pour out the things that they are feeling so heavily on their hearts with each other. It can really bring people together in a beautiful way. It might be a little messy, but I mean, who doesn't love mess but God? When it comes to just bringing people together who don't have it all right and don't have it together. So I think it really is a good time for spiritual leaders in the church to just step up to the plate and give their congregation, agency and freedom to be able to have those conversations and to talk with one another about just the things that are dividing us, and praying for those people that need that deeper conversation. So yeah, this is really, really good stuff. And there's also another, if you guys need more about listening, we have always listening. We have a recent study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that's talking about what happens when people feel genuinely listened to during a disagreement. So it's not just
so important, because of the fact that we don't have data on that. It's just sort of a thing that we think we're like, oh yeah, it's generally good, but it's really important to actually hear the research on it and say, this isn't just a vibes check, this is something that people can actually report back on.
And just knowing that people are actually paying attention to you and feeling that, I remember from your first time here on Newsletter Recap, when you were saying how one of the tools that you use is repeating back what somebody says.
Which is like such an old, boring classic one, I just have to say. But everyone's like, yeah, we learned that in second grade.
So much.
Yes.
It's something so, it's just overlooked so much because people really do not, for me personally, not, on purpose. I'm not intentionally trying to not listen to someone.
Right.
It's just, there's so much going on in my brain, but that's why listening is so important. And the sacred listening research that we're doing here, where what really makes someone feel truly heard? What makes someone feel as though that they actually are being listened to in this environment? Is it just someone just letting them ramble on and then they're like, okay, that was great, next, let's go?
Right.
Or is it someone who's actually saying, okay, so what I'm hearing you're saying is, or so it seems like this is what's going on, so what I'm not hearing is that you're saying is, it's those practices that say like, oh, you're actually paying attention to what's going on, and you actually want to give me freedom to keep going and keep talking, which is what was in this recent study, where they were saying that speakers can become less defensive with the
makes so much sense.
Their views. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
And this is Imago Dei, right? Like, this is the whole tenet of saying, I'm not just listening so that you feel heard. I'm not just listening so that I can know what's going on, although all of those things are also happening. I'm listening because I assume that, like, the act of us listening to each other really for real, the reason it's sacred is because God is going to speak through us and be a part of the conversation. So if we're not listening, there's the possibility that we'll miss that. And that is what makes sacred listening different although, not antithetical to any type of other like really smart, well-informed, data-backed listening. We have this extra component that's looking for God in each other.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Newsletter. You think it's always just going to be about listening, but we're going to get in there. We're going to get deep really fast.
It is really, really fun. But we are closing in on our time. So I'm going to do a quick overview of all of the cool stuff that we still have in the newsletter.
I won't interrupt.
No, so it's okay. So we have the blog roundup, which is a new section that we have in our newsletter.
I love this section.
Fun.
Yeah.
It features all of our ministry practitioners. We have Chris Jordan, who has a blog about being storytellers. We have Katora Boston and Cajun Boston, husband and wife. They also have newsletters, or they have blogs that are featured in the newsletter that if you would like to read more about,
they're all really good. Everybody should read them. Yeah.
It is awesome stuff. Then we have some dream jobs and opportunities. We always hook y'all up. There's too many to name. There's like
I love this section of the newsletter. It's like our little LinkedIn corner.
This is 100% the LinkedIn portion of our newsletter. But make sure you guys apply and get hired and find your dream job. But this was super, super fun. I loved having just new people on the newsletter recap. I love Josh so much. Gotta say that.
You just gotta shake it up.
But whenever people come into the newsletter recap, it gets crazy. Like it's a whole nother perspective. I'm like, oh my gosh. The people we work with are so good.
Yeah, our crew's getting bigger.
They are getting bigger, and you will see new people soon.
Exciting. Well, it was lovely being here with you. Love chatting.
Yay. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming to the newsletter recap. We will see you guys next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the newsletter recap with Tap and friends. Be sure to subscribe at our newsletter at futureoffaith.org. See you next time.